The movie opens on Saturday, June 21, 1941 in Brest City Park. Sashka Akimov, a 15-year-old musician, and his older brother, Andrei, whose parents were killed in the Spanish Civil War, are serving in the 333rd Rifle Regiment of the Red Army at the Brest Fortress. Elsewhere, a commissar, Yefim Fomin, discovers he is unable to bring his family to Brest due to a shortage of train tickets. Meanwhile, in NKVD Lieutenant Weinstein's office, Major Gavrilov admits to Weinstein that he is spreading the rumor of the incoming German invasion in the fortress. He anxiously shows him the fortress map to elaborate on their chances of being trapped inside once invaded. Finally, he warns him that the war is about to take place, yet people are nonchalant and unconvinced by his claims. Sometime later, at night in a movie theater, Kolka and Sonia watch the movie flash on the screen. Unfortunately, the movie gets interrupted when the whole fortress loses power and experiences a blackout due to sabotage by German commandos. Simultaneously, at the railway station, the Nazi forces arrive while disguised as Soviet soldiers. Unfortunately, the Brest citizens are oblivious to their arrival, making the Nazis capable of surrounding and subverting them. Lieutenant Andrei Mitrofanovich Kijevatov is conversing with his wife about their daughter Anya. In the middle of their conversation, his wife asks him about the rumors about the German invasion. Confidently, he tells his wife that the rumors are baseless and untrue. Sashka and Anya converse in their music room. Anya insists on going fishing with Sashka tomorrow. Sashka refuses as he perceives Anya as prohibited from going out, so Anya will escape tomorrow morning. The next day, Sashka and Anya go fishing on a nearby lake. Unexpectedly, the lake gets bombed, causing panic. They hastily flee the lake separately. On the other hand, as Kolka and Sonia are sleeping in the movie theater, they are disrupted by loud bomb sounds. Kolka goes out and sees people dying from the attack. Sonia remains inside, frightened and emotional. After some time, Sonia gets stuck in the movie theater room when the debris begins falling. Unfortunately, Kolka cannot return quickly because he struggles to save himself from bombs coming his way. In an instant, the Nazis bombard the fortress with heavy artillery. Citizens swiftly escape to save themselves. Unprepared, numerous citizens and Soviet soldiers die. Simultaneously, Anya's family is unable to find her in their house. Kijevatov assures to look for her while his family stays at their hideout, and his family flees their house. Unfortunately, their home falls in a split second when a bomb drops into it. Nevertheless, Gavrilov sends them away to find their hideout. As Sashka returns to the fortress, he shockingly sees the whole place covered in smoke and people attempting to save their lives. Additionally, he notices how the Nazis shoot them unmercifully. Dazed and confused, Sashka hides to save himself. Later, he arrives at the NKVD battalion barracks and notices Soviet soldiers in panic. Soldiers furiously seize weapons without permission. Sticking by the rules, Sashka grabs his trumpet to serve as his weapon in the battle. The bomb temporarily stops, causing momentary relief to the Russians. Later that day, citizens hastily flee through the northern gate, not knowing what's waiting on the other side. As they exit the tunnel, the Nazis remorselessly shoot them. Consequently, numerous dead bodies block the gate. At the same time, at the eastern fort, Soviet soldiers panic-fled their barracks unarmed. Major Gavrilov arrives and furiously does his warning shots to catch their attention. Finally, he authoritatively orders them to return to their barracks to grab weapons and be in a defensive position. Meanwhile, at Kolm Gate, Commissar Fomin takes charge of the resistance zone of Soviet soldiers. After a while, they spot the Nazis and shoot them all. Minutes later, the Nazis arrive and observe movements from their surroundings on a lookout. Kijevatov commences open fire against the Nazis. Consequently, the Nazis readily shoot at them to fight back. During the battle, Kijevatov uses his handgun to kill the Nazis. Then, in the spur of the moment, a Nazi officer almost pierces his chest with a knife. Fortuitously, the Nazi officer is taken down by one of Kijevatov's men. In the same setting, Kolka manages to return back to Sonia. However, the Nazi appears behind him and throws him down on the ground. The Nazis leave him there, assuming he died from the fall. Meanwhile, a German commando pretends to be a Soviet superior officer to undermine the defense of the 132nd NKVD battalion barracks. Luckily, NKVD Lieutenant Weinstein outsmarts him as he discovers his boots are different from theirs. He shoots him to death as he attempts to escape their barracks. Moments later, captured hospital staff and patients suddenly appeared at Kolm Gate. The Nazis hold them hostage, while Fomin slowly walks to them unarmed. Seconds later, Fomin signals his men to shoot the Nazis while the captured citizens take cover. The citizens are sent to the basement to hide as the shooting stops. Fomin bewilderedly goes back to their post unharmed. Then he orders his men to investigate Brest. After a while, Fomin's men return to report their findings. They learn that the northern gate is blocked by dead bodies, and there are no entrances, thus making them unable to enter the fortress of Brest. Meanwhile, at the Soviet officer's house, Sashka searches for his brother Andrei. Instead, he finds his uncle Vanya and his wife, sure exhausted from defending their home. As he learns his brother is nowhere near, Vanya orders him to leave. As Sashka leaves, the couple commits suicide before the Nazis reach their position. In the eastern fort, heavily armed Nazis approach them with 3 military tanks. Gavrilov orders the soldiers to take the position and stand by in support. Andrei, Sashka's brother, uses his anti-tank gun on 2 Nazi tanks. Unfortunately, as he's about to succeed, the remaining tank shoots them down to death. After that, Gavrilov commences the attack. His men open fire and fight the Nazis. Sometime later, Nazi commandos order a retreat and ceasefire. As the shooting stops, Gavrilov orders his men to gather their dead comrades and bury them. At the same time, NKVD battalion barracks are outnumbered with only 18 defenders left. They suffer from hunger, thirst, and no reinforcement for days. In hopes Vanstein claims support will come to their rescue soon. At night, Kijevatov returns to his family's hideout alone. He searches for his daughter Anya amongst them, yet she's nowhere to be found. So finally, he orders them to depart to the basement of their barracks because their hideout is about to collapse. The next day, Sashka wakes up beside a corpse in a completely bombarded area. He notices citizens surrendering to the Nazis. He hastily runs towards Kijevatov's post. He asks Kijevatov if Anya's with him. Unfortunately, he discovers Anya is missing, so he impetuously leaves to search for her. On his departure, he manages to arrive at Kolm Gate. He sees Fomin's men interrogating a Nazi officer they managed to capture. After a while, a Soviet fighter named Lieutenant Karolin is piloting an aircraft arriving at Brest. Nazi aircraft begin shooting and destroy it. Karolin lands at the fortress and is rescued by Fomin's men. He reports the current situation in Brest and where the other Red Army is heading. The atmosphere becomes silent when soldiers hear the news. Meanwhile, Kolka manages to wake up from the fall and escape. However, he hides in a trench and hears Sonia emotionally screaming from a distance. As Sonia attempts to escape, the Nazis forcibly drag her back to the movie theater. Sadly, Kolka is incapable of rescuing her. After that, as Fomin's men fight against the Nazis, Sashka leaves to willingly deliver Fomin's plan to other resistance groups. In an instant, the Nazis bombarded the fortress with heavy artillery. Sashka manages to survive and fortuitously finds Anya in a destroyed house. However, he leaves her with the intention of returning later on. He mentions that he needs to deliver Fomin's plan first before he comes back to rescue her. Sometime later, Sashka arrives at the NKVD battalion barracks. He discovers that the Soviet soldiers died, including their leader, Weinstein. Next, he goes to the eastern fort through the lake. On his way to the barracks, he sees dead bodies. He realizes that these people were thirsty and attempted to reach the lake yet died from the shooting. Luckily, Sashka reaches their barracks and brings a kettle of water to Gavrilov to share with them. He reports the joint breakthrough that Fomin plans for this evening. Afterward, Sashka passes out from exhaustion. Night comes, and the Soviet resistance groups commence an attack on the Nazis. Again, the joint breakthrough goes according to plan. Fomin's men immediately attack the Nazis at Kolm Gate. Expectedly, the Nazis heavily shoot them. Numerous Soviet defenders are killed in an instant. Meanwhile, Gavrilov's men carefully move to the Nazis' position in the eastern fort. They commence the attack, meters away from them. The Nazis bomb most Soviet soldiers to death. Nevertheless, they continue to fight despite being outnumbered. At the same time, Kijevatov's men hastily flee to fight the Nazis. However, as they swim the lake to reach the Nazis' position, they are shot to death remorselessly. Unfortunately, the joint breakthrough failed. The Nazis drive them back to their original posts. The Soviet soldiers suffer heavy losses in the battle. After some time, Fomin exhaustedly returns to their basement to witness their military doctor sleeping while operating. The doctor devastatingly reports to Fomin his incapability to save one of his men. Later, he walks out, then gets shot to death by the Nazis. Fomin is shocked. In the morning, Sashka sees hundreds of dead soldiers lying on the ground. He returns back to where he found Anya. Fetching her, he finds her lying and provides her with water to drink immediately. They leave together. On the other hand, the basement of the 9th Frontier Barracks is crowded with injured civilians and soldiers. Kijevatov stares at them while realizing how he failed to protect them. Hopeless, Kijevatov reluctantly orders the surviving civilians, including his family, to leave the fortress. 15 minutes before the end of the ceasefire, Kijevatov's wife leads the survivors on their way to the Nazis. First, they willingly surrender to save themselves. Then, unexpectedly, Kijevatov sees Anya from a distance and hastily runs toward her. At ease, Kijevatov finds Anya alive, yet will part ways again as he forces her and Sashka to surrender to the Nazis. Kijevatov and his men remain. The next day, the Nazis decide to drop a 2-ton bomb on the Brest fortress. The fortress explodes in an instant, leaving massive deaths and destruction. After that, the Nazis eradicate the fortress with military tanks and fire. The remaining civilians are killed remorselessly. On the other hand, Kolka manages to survive. However, he experiences unjust treatment from the Nazis. Then, unexpectedly, he sees Sonia lying dead on the ground. To retaliate, he picks up a grenade set to explode him and one of the Nazis, but instead, he dies lying next to Sonia. Meanwhile, the Soviet defenders at Culm Gate are forced to surrender. Fomin, their leader, admits to being a Jew and communist as a commissar to the Nazis. Then the Nazi firing squad unmercifully executed him. At the eastern fort, Gavrilov orders his men to exit the fortress. He bids farewell to them as he stays in their barracks alone, waiting to get captured. Sometime later, Sashka returns to the 9th Frontiers barracks. He claims to have escaped the Nazis and gone deaf as a bomb went off near him. Kizevatov orders him to leave and survive so he can tell their story to the world. He hands him the regimental colors to take with him on his journey. Afterward, Kizevatov orders his men to shoot the Nazis outside the vicinity while he takes cover for them with a machine gun. He continuously opens fire at the Nazis' position, but falls dead when one of the Nazis throws an explosive inside. Luckily, Sashka manages to flee the Brest fortress alone. Afterward, raindrops from the sky appear after days of the dry season. Many years later, elderly Sashka appears in front of the tombstones of the Soviet defenders and his family. He pays tribute to the memorial of Brest Fortress, accompanied by his grandson, to remember the good days and memories of life before the Nazis took everything. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.